everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Football Betting Series here on YouTube, Premier League edition. We won all four of our picks last time out, and if it wasn't for a controversial final whistle in Spain, our continental record would have looked pretty good as well. However, at the end of the first week of March, we have an overall record of 5 wins, 2 defeats, and a single push, for a total profit of £33.15. Adding that to our previous month's data, and our overall record stands at this: 38 wins, 15 losses with 4 pushes, for a total series profit of £257.50. I've got 3 selections in today's episode, so if you think I'm talking some sense, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Without further ado, let's get into our picks for this weekend, the 9th and 10th of March. We kick things off with 14th place Crystal Palace playing host to 18th place Luton Town. And despite taking the lead thanks to a wonderful free kick courtesy of Eze, Crystal Palace lost their most recent game by 3-1 against Spurs. Now, they've had mixed form of late, and the last 3 games have been a perfect illustration of this: 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 defeat to their name. Now, Crystal Palace are safe from relegation, in my opinion, so that really means the second half of the season will be more about how Glasner wants Crystal Palace to play moving forward into next year. However, they do need to still pick up some points against the teams below them, like Luton. Speaking of the away side, Luton battled back from 2-0 down against Aston Villa in the second half, only to have their hearts broken in stoppage time thanks to Digne's late winner. It's the same story for Luton Town, as once again they've shown in flashes that they have enough quality to get results in the Premier League, but ultimately they're not quite getting over the line. Consequently, Luton are looking down the barrel of 5 straight losses and winless in each of their last 6 in all competitions. Taking a look at the head-to-head record, the reverse fixture finished by 2-1 here, with the Hatters scoring 2 of their 3 efforts on goal. Between the two sides, I do fancy Crystal Palace to win, but as we've discussed previously, their form is mixed at best right now, so it's quite unreliable to go with them. One thing that isn't mixed is the high-scoring nature of their games. Over 2.5 goals in 7 of Crystal Palace's last 8 Premier League games, the only exception to this being a 1-1 draw away at Everton. Across the year, Crystal Palace have seen 3 or more goals scored in 60% of league games, with an average of 2.93 goals per game scored. At Selhurst Park, this number actually rises up slightly from 60% to 62% of games. As for the away side, well, Luton have seen over 2.5 goals scored in each of their last 6 Premier League games. Overall for the season, they've seen 3 or more scored in 73% of games, with an average of 3.5 goals per game. And away from home, these numbers swing up as well. 75% of Luton's away games have seen at least 3 goals scored, with an average of 3.75 goals per game scored. For these reasons, I'm going to be taking over 2.5 goals for a full stake in bet number 1. Moving on to Sunday now, and 4th placed Aston Villa play host to 5th placed Spurs, as these two teams battle for Champions League football. As touched upon in our last selection, Aston Villa managed to win their game last time against Luton Town by winning 3-2. They somewhat bottled a 2-goal lead, but managed to steal the 3 points back in the last minutes thanks to Digne's goal. This does mean that the Villains have now 3 straight wins in the Premier League going into their Thursday night fixture against Ajax in the Conference League. Again, as touched on the last selection, Spurs showed great character to pull back their win from a goal down against Crystal Palace. Son added the cherry on top of the cake with his stoppage time goal, and that's his 13th of the season. In terms of form, that means that Spurs are now unbeaten in 4 of their last 5 games. When we look at the head-to-head record, Villa dominated proceedings over the last 3 encounters, winning all 3. This includes the 2-1 win earlier in the season, which was a highly competitive game for both sides, as they combined for 33 efforts on goal, combining for 4.1 xG. With numbers like that, it's difficult to look past goals in this selection. Aston Villa have seen over 2.5 goals in each of their last 7 games in all competitions. Across the season, Villa's games are averaging 3.56 goals per game, with over 2.5 goals occurring 74% of the time. At Villa Park, both of these numbers increase to 3.85 goals per game and 77% of games seeing over 2.5 goals. For Spurs, on the other hand, they have seen over 2.5 goals in each of their last 9 Premier League games. In terms of percentage, we're looking at 81% of their games have seen 3 or more goals scored. On the road, this does drop to 75%, but it's still one of the better records in the division. It's going to be a difficult game to call the outright winner, but I do feel pretty confident that we'll see goals in this one. So I'm going to be putting a full stake on over 2.5 goals in bet number 2. Our third and final selection could very well decide the title. First place Liverpool play host to second place Manchester City, and Liverpool needed 100 minutes to pick up their winning goal against Nottingham Forest in their last game. Darwin Nunez flicked a header with finesse past a helpless Sells in goal for Liverpool to pick up all 3 points to remain top of the tree. This does mean that Liverpool have now recorded 4 straight wins and 6 wins in a row in all contests ahead of their Europa League tie against Sparta Prague. For the away side, Manchester City beat Manchester United by 3 goals to 1 most recently in the Manchester derby. A game that was frankly not as competitive as the scoreline would suggest, and in some ways the 1 goal flatters Man United. In terms of form, City have won 4 in a row now, and they're unbeaten in each of their last 19 games in all competitions. Head to head, well, the reverse fixture finished even at 1 goal apiece. And in truth, this game has been pretty difficult to call in recent years. There's no clear winner between the two, and the form is very mixed over the last few encounters. So there's a lot of pressure coming into this game for a match that could ultimately decide the title. With such a high pressure situation, I think we're looking at maybe a low scoring game in this one. Both sides are among the highest scorers in the league, and we've seen results between the two like 4-1, 3-2, and a couple of 2-2s in recent years. However, I think we're looking at two sides here that are going to cancel each other out and won't be firing on all cylinders. For Liverpool, the reason's simply down to injuries. At the time of recording, Matip, Jota, Alexander-Arnold, Alisson, Jones, Gravenberch, Thiago, and Salah are all doubtful to play. And for Manchester City, whilst their form has started to pick up and they have that unbeaten streak that I mentioned, they have seen a lack of goals. Under 3.5 goals have come in 4 of their last 5 games. All things considered, I'm going to be taking under 3.5 goals in this bet. The market's not out yet, but if the under 2.5 is anything to go off, I'm expecting the odds to be around even money. And I'm also going to pay respect to the firepower each side holds. I'm going to be taking under 3.5 goals for a half stake in bet number 3. So there we have it, 3 selections in today's episode. Starting off on the Saturday, Crystal Palace play host to Luton. I'm going to be taking over 2.5 goals, odds of 1.89, a £30 stake to return £26.70. On the Sunday, Aston Villa Spurs, we're hoping to see at least 3 goals in that game with a slightly shorter odds of 1.4, a £30 stake to return 12 in that one. And wrapping up the weekend with perhaps the biggest game of the season to this point, Liverpool versus Manchester City. I'm going to take under 3.5 goals. I'm expecting the odds to be around about, put an asterisk there, around about even money, £15 stake to return 15 in kind. So across the weekend, we're going to be risking £75 to hopefully pick up as much as £53.70. Will we do so? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tune into the next episode. But if you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, have yourself a lovely day.